I wasn't quite sure what to expect with this one, but I was actually pleasantly surprised. Welcome back to the channel, Book Dragons. I'm so glad you're here with me today. I recently finished reading Anansi Boys by Neil Gaiman, and I'm so excited to talk with you about it. This is one of the few Neil Gaiman books that I have not read, and I know what you're thinking, Chaz. Neil Gaiman is your favorite author. Why have you not read every single book that he's ever written? And that's so true. I need to get on the ball. There's still a few that I have not read. This was one of them, but now I've read it, and I'm here to talk with you about it. I didn't really know much about this book, except for the fact that it is set in the same world as American Gods, and I was under the impression that it was like a sidequel or continuation, or maybe even prequel to American Gods. And I was wrong on all counts. It is set in the same world, most definitely. It features characters that show up in American Gods, but it's a completely separate story. This story follows Charlie Nancy. He is the son of Mr. Nancy, who is a character in American Gods. And Charlie spent most of his life in America, but he moved to Great Britain to make his way in the world. He's set up with an investment firm in England, and he has a woman that he is engaged to. He's very excited about marrying her, with the exception of the fact that it comes packaged with his mother-in-law, who hates him. Charlie is a really laid-back, unsuspecting fellow, not really much of a risk taker, kind of quiet, kind of reserved, and that is completely unlike his father, because we get some glimpses early on in the book at what his father is like, and his father's a somewhat elderly gentleman, really popular with the ladies. He's always singing at the nightclubs and everything like that. And Charlie was always embarrassed by his father, and so he has kind of become estranged from Mr. Nancy. But he ends up being encouraged by his fiancée to invite his father to the wedding, and of course he calls home only to find out that his father has died. Or has he? Because in reality, Mr. Nancy is a god. Even though gods might die, do they ever really die? That's a big question. And so when he goes home for the funeral, he finds out that he has a brother, and his brother is known as Spider. We never really get any other name for his brother except Spider. And they have a very unique connection. And that's all I'm going to say, because to say any more would spoil it. But Spider seemed to have gotten all the godly powers in the family, and Charlie is just kind of a ho-hum average guy compared to his father and his brother. And as the story progresses, Charlie gets reunited with his brother Spider, and that's when everything just starts going wrong. Spider is a huge risk taker. He's super mischievous. He gets into all kinds of trouble and gets Charlie into all kinds of trouble, and just starts invading Charlie's life, even to the point of causing everyone to think that he is Charlie, because that is just the way that his magic works. He can convince anybody that he is whoever he wants them to think he is. So that ends up causing a whole lot of trouble in Charlie's life. And it's just this really fun, little whimsical story about gods that take up residence in our world and the children that they spawn. And it's just a hilarious romp. And there's a lot of different things going on in the story in terms of magic. There's witchcraft and seances and Spider manipulating everybody to do what he wants them to do. And it is just so funny at times. And you get some windows into the myths behind the story as well. So this is focused on the African trickster god Anansi, who does appear in human form at times, but also appears in the form of a spider. And so, when you think about Charlie's brother being nicknamed Spider. You're kind of getting that allusion to spiders there, and the way he summons his brothers by talking to spiders and like, hey, can you go find my brother? Yeah, it's just this weird off the wall. Typical Neil Gaiman, right? It is typical Neil Gaiman. You're going to get some weird, off the wall, whimsical stuff, and it is just so much fun, guys. And the reason I said that I wasn't quite sure what to think is because I was not that big a fan of American Gods. I liked it, and I think I might enjoy it more on a reread, maybe, but to me, American Gods is probably Neil Gaiman's weakest book, just for my personal preference. So knowing that this was related to American Gods, I was like, well, I'll read it, see what I think, but I'll kind of set my expectations a little bit lower. And I shouldn't have, because knowing Neil Gaiman like I do, I should have expected that this would be a banger. And it was. I just absolutely love this book. It just goes to show you what happens when you get wrapped up with a family member that you know nothing about, and you realize that you probably should have just left them alone and taken everybody else's advice, that they would cause a lot of trouble if they came back. And so there's definitely a lot of family politics in this. So that was a lot of fun to watch. And even though Spider caused all this turmoil in Charlie's life, as the story progresses, Charlie begins to take ownership of his life and become more who he was destined to be. There's a huge emphasis on music in this, and music being the foundation of what brings your story to life. I'll read you like just kind of the opening line here, because it's really telling on this particular theme. It begins as most things begin, with a song. In the beginning, after all, were the words, and they came with a tune. That was how the world was made, how the void was divided, how the lands and the stars and the dreams and the little gods and the animals, how all of them came into the world. They were sung. The great beasts were sung into existence after the singer had done with the planets and the hills and the trees and the oceans and the lesser beasts. The cliffs that bound existence were sung, and the hunting grounds and the dark. Songs remain. They last. The right song can turn an emperor into a laughingstock, can bring down dynasties. A song can last long after the events and the people in it are dust and dreams and gone. That's the power of songs. So you can kind of see how everything is kind of wrapped up in music and singing things into existence. A core foundation of who Mr. Nancy was or is in his music, in his singing, in his performing. And as the story progresses, we see Charlie come to realize how his destiny unfolds as part of that song. And it's just really great to experience his journey as he makes those self-discoveries. Very special discoveries about how he and Spider are connected. And again, I can't say anything, but it is just really, really awesome. And I really hope you check this book out. This review has been kind of all over the place. I understand that. But this book is just one of those that you have to experience, and you have to go along for the ride. You have to be there for the journey. You have to be there for the song. There are times when you're going to be sitting there reading and you're like, whoa, where did that come from? But it's part of the story, and you accept it and you love it. And yeah, I couldn't recommend this book more. I would definitely like to see anybody who watches this video read this book if you have not had a chance. And you might be wondering if you have to have read American Gods to enjoy this book. No, you don't. It is a completely standalone novel. It just happens to have a character in it that also shows up in American Gods, but it's a completely unrelated story. I think it's much more enjoyable, in my opinion, than American Gods was. I still liked American Gods, but I think this is the better book by far. Where would I rank this book? I'm going to put it in my hoard, guys. This definitely goes in my hoard. There is no way this is leaving my library. I have to own a copy. And I'm just so happy that I got to read this. It was my random pick from my Stein of Power for the month of February, and I'm so happy it was. And it just reinforces for me, as if I needed it reinforced, that Neil Gaiman is an absolute literary genius. So, there we go. That is my review for Anansi Boys. What do you think? Have you read this book? Please let me know in the comments. I would love to chat with you more about it. And if you've not read it, are you planning to read it? Because I think you should, so you can come back and talk with me about it. Pop into the Dragon's Den Discord. That's the best place to have long-form discussions on books. Come chat with all of us there. I'll probably start up a forum discussion for this book here in the next few days. So if you want to talk about this book or my review or anything related to Anansi Boys, you can probably find it there. I'm going to toss this in there and see what people think. And I can't wait to have a conversation with you about it. So that's it, guys. Until next time, make sure you are reading more books, and I will see you soon.